Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about SA505 external confirmations. In audit evidence, external confirmation plays very important role. The external confirmations are more reliable as compared to internal confirmations because overall we have seen in SA500 that the confirmations could be oral or written, or it may be internal or external. External confirmation is the confirmation which is taken from external source directly by the auditor, and therefore they are more reliable. Written confirmations are more reliable as compared to the oral confirmations. Therefore, external confirmation in audit evidence plays very important role. The overview of the standard is given in this slide. It is introduction, objective, definitions, and of course requirement and applications. In requirements and applications, we have seen that the external confirmation procedure, what should be the procedure for obtaining external confirmations? Then if management refuse to send the external confirmation request, then what is the course of action the auditor should take? Then results of external confirmation procedure. If there are negative confirmations, how it should be dealt, and finally evaluating the overall audit evidence. The scope of the standard is auditors uses the external confirmation procedure, then obtains audit evidence through external confirmation procedure, and it is of course in accordance with SA 330 and SA 500, but it does not cover the inquiries relating to litigations or claim. These are few standards which also we refer while dealing with this standard. When these external confirmation procedures are used, the auditor's objective is to design and perform such procedures to obtain relevant and reliable audit evidence, and therefore normally external confirmation procedures are followed. There are various definitions which are given. External confirmation, what is external confirmation, then positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request. We will be seeing that one during the course of our presentation. The first one is external confirmation. Audit evidence obtained as direct written response to the auditor from the third party in paper form, by electronic or other medium. So what is important is it is directly asked to send to the auditor by the third party to confirm certain things. Say for example, if at all we want to confirm the balances of receivables, the auditor can select certain parties, write to them and get the confirmation about the balances, transactions during the audit period from those parties directly to the auditor's address, and thus it is verified with the books of accounts of the auditee. If there are exceptions noticed, the auditor may deal it appropriately while reporting on the audit. There are positive confirmation requests and negative confirmation requests. What is positive confirmation request? That the auditor requests the confirming party to give entire data, not by exception. He has to confirm positively that the data given is correct as per his record. And as far as negative confirmation request is concerned, if there are exceptions, certain aspects are not matching, then only he communicates to the auditor. Therefore, there is a distinction between the positive confirmation request and negative confirmation request. This is a request to confirming party, no doubt about that one. It is to be sent to auditors directly, both are same. Now, in case of positive confirmation request, expectation is that he has to always send the response to those requests, while in case of negative confirmation request, it is only if there is a difference in the transactions, then the confirming party had to write to the auditor. Then what is to be responded? In case of positive confirmation, whether confirming party agrees or disagrees with the information in the request and provide the requested information. Well, in case of negative confirmation request, the confirming party disagrees with the information in request, then only he has to write to this. When the auditor do not get the response from the confirming party or the positive confirmation request, there is a failure to respond to that particular request, then it could be considered as non-response to the confirmation request, and in that case it will be also considered as there may be possible risk of material misstatement. The auditor may suitably adopt some alternative procedure to verify such transactions so that he can satisfy himself whether these transactions shown in the books of auditees are correct or not. When we receive the confirmations, then we find certain exceptions or mismatches. Now these mismatches have to be dealt appropriately. We'll be seeing that one subsequently. As far as external confirmation procedures are concerned, the procedure can be as follows. No doubt, the auditor has to maintain the control over the external confirmation requests because he has to really analyze them. So first stage is to determine the information to be requested or confirmed. Say for example, the auditor wants the confirmation from receivables, then he will determine that the confirmations for receivables have to be asked for. Then he will go through the entire list of receivables and select the appropriate sample of confirming party. Then he will write to those confirming parties. But before that one, he will definitely design the confirmation request as to how it should be. To be very precise, the confirmation request should be such that the confirming party should induce to send the response to the auditor, and therefore designing of confirmation request is most important. And then finally the sending of request to confirming party and getting their responses. This is the overall procedure for external confirmation request. So designing confirmation request. Now what are the various aspects to be seen? The request should be properly addressed to the party. Then it should contain the written information to be responded directly to the auditor. So there has to be a specific mention at name, address or contact number. If it is email address, that should be mentioned over there so that the request, the response to the request could be sent directly to the auditor. While designing the request, what are the various factors which one has to consider? One is assertion being addressed. That is what exactly we need from the confirming party. What is the assertion the confirming party should give? That should be spelled out very clearly in the request. Then specific identified risk of material misstatement. So where auditor feels that there is a risk of material misstatement, he should ideally say that yes, if at all the statement of accounts is attached, you can say that compare that one with your books of accounts and give your statements as well. So if there is any difference in the balances, it can be easily noticed by the auditor sitting at the auditee's place. Then layout and presentation of the request. It should be such, the lettering, presentation or the writing style should be such, it should not be clumsy, person should feel like reading it and responding it. Then what is the prior experience of the auditor as far as such external confirmation is also equally important, and considering that experience, the auditor should design his request accordingly. Then methods of communication. Nowadays, instead of post, people send requests by emails. Now if at all it is sent by emails, what is the procedure and what control should be there? What is the email ID on which these responses should be sent? It should be spelled out very clearly. Then management authorization and encouragement to confirming party to respond to the auditor. See, merely auditor writing to the third party may not have that much success as far as response is concerned, and therefore there will be one request from the management side saying that our auditor will send you the confirmation request, kindly respond to it immediately, it will facilitate it in concluding our audit fast. And then ability of confirming party to provide or confirm the request of information. Say for example, in what condition that person is there, whether the company is running or not, is there any what you can say lockout in the company, is there any problem with the company. One has to really see this particular aspect, and accordingly the overall procedure has to be designed. The auditor may send additional requests if the response is not received by the auditor for the previous request which is made, and thus the proper follow-up will be made. Then this is overall situation. If at all, when you talk to the management feels that such requests should not be sent for external confirmation. Then the auditor has to evaluate overall situation. He has to inquire the management's reason for not sending such request and whether that can be considered as scope limitation in his audit report. Secondly, he has to also evaluate what will be its implications if the management refuses to send such external confirmation request, and the assessment of risk of material misstatement and the nature, timing, extent of other audit procedures to be followed, that needs to be seen. Auditor has to also see whether there exists any fraud risk, and then he has to revise the assessment of risk of material misstatement and modify his audit procedures. In such cases, the auditor has to perform the alternative audit procedures to obtain relevant and reliable audit evidence, and if he concludes that there exists a risk of material misstatement, then he can appropriately deal it in audit reporting. The non-response to the request is also considered as one of the risks to material misstatement in the financial statement. When the auditor considers that the management refusal for sending external confirmation is unreasonable, or the auditor is unable to obtain relevant and reliable audit evidence from the alternative procedures, then he has to communicate this thing to the persons those charged with the governance under SA 260 and determine whether suitable modification needs to be given in the audit report. When the auditor has got doubt on the reliability of the response, then he can obtain further audit evidence to resolve the doubt. When the response to request is not reliable, the auditor has to evaluate whether there exists any risk of material misstatement and accordingly deal with the situation. For each non-response, the auditor has to perform the alternate audit procedure, and therefore the external confirmations, whether it is received or not received, if there are exceptions or no exceptions, that is most valuable audit procedure in relation to the audit evidence. In case of response to positive confirmations, this becomes necessary for the purpose of sufficient adequate audit evidences. Then we have got negative confirmations. Negative confirmation provides less persuasive audit evidence than positive confirmations. However, in certain situations, such negative confirmations could be asked for. There are various situations in which auditor may adopt to negative confirmations. Say for example, auditors assess risk of material misstatement as low and has obtained sufficient adequate audit evidence regarding operating effectiveness of control relevant to assertion, or population of relevant items comprises large number of small homogeneous account balances, transactions or conditions, then auditor can send negative confirmations. There are very low exception rate which is expected in the procedure, and therefore auditor can adopt to negative confirmations, or auditor is not aware of any circumstances or condition that would cause recipient of non-confirmation request to disregard the request. Then overall, having received the evidences, then auditor has to evaluate these audit evidences, find out the results. If he finds the exception, then he has to perform some further audit procedures to conclude about the audit opinion. There are various categories of results out of external confirmations. Say there are agreements from all the parties. All the parties to whom the confirmations have been sent, they are agreeing to whatever records the auditee is having. Then in such cases, auditor can very well satisfy himself that the confirmations are correct, audit records are correct. Then if he feels that responses are deemed unreliable, then auditor has to carry out alternate audit procedures, try to see whether there is any risk of material misstatement in the financial statement, and accordingly satisfy himself from his audit opinion. Sometimes non-response to the request is also considered as negative confirmation, and therefore auditor has to ascertain, of course after doing alternate audit procedure, that he will conclude whether there is any risk of material misstatement in the financial statement. And there are not necessary that all the things will have agreement or confirmations are positive, and therefore there are certain responses which indicate exception, that is the differences, mismatches. The auditor has to understand as to why these mismatches are there. Certain mismatches may be due to timings or some clerical errors, or the audit methodology used, accounting methodology used at the client's place. Then in such cases, auditor has to understand these aspects and satisfy himself whether these confirmations can be ignored or it cannot be considered as negative confirmations received by the auditor. Thus friends, you must have seen that rather than internal audit confirmations, external confirmations for audit evidence, they are most reliable, and therefore as an auditor we should definitely think of designing some procedure for external confirmations. Thank you very much.